In the late 13th century, Scotland stood at a precipice. The death of Alexander III in 1286 and his granddaughter Margaret, Maid of Norway, in 1290 left Scotland without a direct heir. The throne became a prize for powerful nobles, and the resulting instability drew the interest of one of medieval Europe's most formidable rulers, King Edward I of England, known as Longshanks and Hammer of the Scots. Edward seized the opportunity to assert feudal superiority over Scotland. Though he had helped arbitrate the Scottish succession, his true aim was domination. By 1296, Edward had deposed Scotland's chosen king, John Balliol, and replaced independent rule with English governance enforced by garrisons, sheriffs, and a brutal military presence. Out of this chaos, resistance flared across Scotland. Leading the revolt were William Wallace, an obscure figure before 1297, and Andrew Moray, the son of a northern noble. Their union formed the backbone of a rebellion that would reach its crescendo at Stirling Bridge, where strategy, terrain, and bold leadership would deliver a stunning Scottish victory against all odds. Edward I's aggressive control of Scotland in 1296 brought relative peace for a time. Yet beneath the surface, the fires of rebellion simmered. Brutal English policies, including land confiscation, taxes, and summary executions, fueled widespread resentment. In May 1297, multiple revolts broke out. In the South, William Wallace gained prominence by assassinating the English sheriff of Lanark. In the North, Andrew Moray led an insurrection that seized castles and expelled English forces from key strongholds like Inverness and Urquhart. The two men did not coordinate initially, but by midsummer they began to consolidate their efforts, drawing support from commoners, disillusioned nobles, and disaffected clans. Their campaign set its sights on Stirling, the most strategically vital crossing of the River Forth. Stirling Bridge controlled the primary north-south route through central Scotland. Whoever held it could move armies, control trade, and command communication. The bridge spanned the River Forth near the town of Stirling and was the only reliable crossing for miles. Its location made it a perfect choke point and a trap for the unwary. Alarmed by the rebellion's momentum, Edward sent an army under John de Warenne, Earl of Surrey, an aging but experienced commander, and Hugh de Cressingham, the treasurer of Scotland and a symbol of English oppression. Their goal, crush Wallace and Moray swiftly, using superior numbers and arms. The English army likely numbered around 9,000 to 12,000 men, including 1,000 heavy cavalry, longbowmen, and seasoned infantry. In contrast, Wallace and Moray commanded perhaps 5,000 to 6,000, mostly lightly armed foot soldiers, some wielding axes, spears, or farm tools. Wallace and Moray took position north of the Forth, on high ground near Abbey Craig, where the National Wallace Monument now stands. Their army was protected by marshland, forest, and river. The key to their strategy was patience. They would wait for the English to cross the narrow Stirling Bridge before attacking. South of the river, Surrey hesitated. Though advised to avoid a risky crossing, he underestimated his enemy and overestimated his own troops' ability to respond. Cressingham, eager to end the rebellion quickly and cheaply, pushed for immediate action. On the morning of September 11, 1297, the English began crossing the bridge. The wooden Stirling Bridge was only wide enough for two horsemen to ride abreast. It created a natural bottleneck. Early that morning, the English vanguard, knights, infantry, and archers, began the slow crossing. As they formed up on the north bank, they were unaware that they were walking into a trap. Wallace and Moray waited until around 2,000 English troops had crossed, enough to form a sizable force, but still isolated. Then at the perfect moment, they launched the attack. Scottish warriors surged from the high ground, racing down the slope toward the English vanguard. Moray led troops across the narrow causeway through the marsh, cutting off the bridge. Wallace attacked from the flank and front. Trapped against the river and unable to retreat or reinforce, the English troops were annihilated. The bridge itself became a death trap. As more English troops attempted to cross, they were either driven back or pushed into the water. The bridge collapsed or was burned, sources differ, sealing the fate of those stranded on the far side. What began as a confident advance turned into a massacre. English forces panicked and tried to retreat across the narrow span, which only compounded the chaos. Many fell into the Forth and drowned, weighed down by armor. Hugh de Cressingham was among those killed. According to chroniclers, his body was later flayed and pieces of his skin used as trophies or relics. Surrey, safe on the south bank, watched his army disintegrate. He quickly ordered a full retreat. Sixth, aftermath and consequences. Scottish victory. The victory at Stirling Bridge was total and transformative. It shattered the myth of English invincibility and galvanized support across Scotland. Wallace and Moray had won not through brute strength, but through superior tactics, clever use of terrain, and bold timing. Moray, however, was mortally wounded during the battle and died a few weeks later. This left Wallace as the undisputed leader of the resistance. Wallace becomes guardian. Flush with victory, Wallace was knighted, by whom is debated, and proclaimed guardian of Scotland, ruling in the name of the exiled King John Balliol. He led a campaign into northern England, raiding border towns and striking fear into the English. Edward I, however, was not defeated, only delayed. The battle in military terms. Tactics and formations. Wallace and Moray's use of terrain was exemplary. Rather than fight an open battle where English cavalry would dominate, they chose a bottleneck crossing, forcing the English to expose themselves in small numbers. Their assault was a classic hammer and anvil tactic, with one group cutting off escape and the other smashing into disorganized troops. The lack of English coordination sealed their doom. Stirling Bridge had enormous symbolic value. For Scots, it proved that an outnumbered force could defy a great empire. For the English, it was a humiliation, especially for Edward I, who now understood that the Scottish campaign would be longer and bloodier than he had anticipated. English chroniclers like Walter of Gisborough blamed the defeat on misjudgment and Cressingham's arrogance. Scottish accounts, including John of Fordun's Chronica Gentis Scotorum, emphasized Wallace's genius and the justice of the Scottish cause. Modern historians debate the precise numbers and topography. Some argue that the bridge was a wooden archway. Others claim it may have had stone footings. While no archaeological trace remains of the original bridge, most scholars agree that the tactical scenario described by medieval sources aligns with the geography of the area. The victory at Stirling Bridge elevated Wallace to national hero status. Later literature, especially Blind Harry's 15th century epic The Wallace, further romanticized the battle, portraying Wallace as a noble avenger and warrior of the people. Today, the Wallace Monument stands on Abbey Craig overlooking the battlefield. It commemorates Wallace's leadership and the enduring Scottish struggle for independence. Stirling Bridge has appeared in numerous historical works, though it was notably misrepresented in Mel Gibson's Braveheart, which omitted the bridge itself. Despite such inaccuracies, the film revived global interest in Wallace and Scottish history. The Battle of Stirling Bridge was not merely a battlefield triumph. It was a seismic political and psychological victory. It changed the trajectory of the Scottish Wars of Independence and demonstrated that clever strategy could overcome even the most powerful foe. Though Wallace's later defeat at Falkirk and tragic execution in 1305 would mark the end of his personal journey, the legacy of Stirling Bridge lived on. It inspired future resistance, especially under Robert the Bruce, culminating in the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, which finally secured Scottish sovereignty. In the grand tapestry of Scottish history, Stirling Bridge stands as a testament to the courage of an outnumbered people and the genius of leaders willing to fight not for conquest, but for freedom.